Let's continue on with our list of reference types. In this video, we're going to talk about mappings and structs. We're not going to use either of these data structures inside of this particular project, the lottery contract, but on our next project, we definitely will. So this is more of a sneak peek of some of the different types we have available. At this point, I really just want you to know that these exist. That's all. You don't need to know the specifics behind them or anything like that. I just want you to know that they exist. When we come back in that next project, we're going to go over mappings and structs in much greater detail. All right, so let's talk about mappings a little bit. A mapping is a collection of key value pairs. So if you're coming from the world of JavaScript, you can think of a mapping as being very similar to an object. If you're coming from Ruby, they're like hashes. If you're coming from Python, they're like dictionaries. The key thing to keep in mind about a mapping is that all of the keys have to be the same type, and all the values have to be the same type as well. Keys and values, like the set of keys and the set of values, those don't have to be the same type, just all the keys have to be the same type and all the values have to be the same type. We can designate mappings by using what you see over here on the right-hand side. So we say mapping, we then specify the type of key that we want to use, a little arrow, and then the type of value that we want to use. And here's an example of where we would have keys of type int and values of type bool. Mappings are most frequently used for storing collections of data. And the reason I mention that is that when we start talking about a struct, these two are going to seem quite similar in nature. So let's move on to structs, and then we'll discuss exactly how these two things are different. So a struct is a collection of key value pairs, very similar to a mapping, but the values of this one, the values of a struct, can have different types. So here's an example of a type definition of a struct. We say struct, the name of the struct type, and then we specify all of the different properties that the struct will have. So in this case, I made a car. It can have a string of make, a string of model, and an unsigned integer of the car's value. We most commonly use structs to represent a singular thing. So this is a great example right here. We are representing a singular car, and this car has many properties assigned to it. We could also use a struct to represent, say, a desk, a piece of furniture, a person, a house. We usually use them to represent a singular thing. So at this point, mappings probably look quite similar. The difference here is that we usually use a mapping to represent a collection of things. So we might store a collection of different cars inside of a mapping, or we might store a collection of different houses inside of a mapping. In other words, use a struct to represent a singular thing, use a mapping to represent many things. The project that we work on in the next section, which again is where we're going to start seeing maps and structs come up, are going to give you a very good example of exactly how mappings and structs are different. And they very quickly will feel very different, but I know from the definitions I'm giving right here, they seem quite similar. All right, so that's just a quick overview on mappings and structs. Again, I just wanted to give you a quick taste. Let's pause right here, and there's one quick, really big gotcha that I want to mention about these reference types. So let's take care of that in the next video.